Today we're going to look at Green Fassionola, and I'm going to give you all a secret Green Fassionola recipe. I'm not even going to tell the fine folks from the Passionola book about this secret recipe. Speaking of which, Gregorio Pantoja is here to talk and share with us a little bit more about the Passionola book and talk a little bit about Passionola versus Fassionola and the different colors. Now, your book is out. Could you tell us just a little bit more about the book?
Well, we have Passionola after a collective 8 years of research with Martin Lindsay, my co-author, and we just got it in hand. It's shipping out. We've been doing signings and presentations on the book. But yeah, Passionola has really been this mysterious ingredient. Most people knew of Fassionola, but what we talk about in the book is that generic term, or that all-encompassing term Fassionola, really originates with that trademark term Passionola. And in that story, if you thought that, okay, well, what's Passionola? If that was already a mystery, well, now we're here to tell you that there's a red, a gold, and a green version.
Okay, so before we jump into that, where can people find the book?
They can find it on classicsandiego.com. You can find it amazon.com. You can find it through our Instagram social, p.fassionola.
All right, the question I have, the question everyone has, what the hell is Green Fassionola or Green Passionola?
So Green Passionola is one of the variants, and you had the gold, which was passion fruit based. Then you had the red, which was a fruit punch based. The green, which seems to be the most mysterious, and maybe just because of its color, is a lime based.
Okay, so we got a lime based Green Fassionola. Now, you know that I did this. I didn't tell you what's in it. I made my own Green Fassionola. I did not try to make this historically accurate. I wanted to take, I don't want to say it's a modern technique, but just a modern way of incorporating lime. But let's go back to the history. So the first Green Passionola, which is covered in the book, is Hayes Panama Punch in 1922. And it's called out in the book. It says it's dark green, concentrated punch base of lime and other tropical fruits. But that might be 1922 sort of here in the US, but that's not necessarily where it started, correct?
So over in New Zealand, they were actually making these different variations of passion fruit syrups and passion fruit sodas, and Coates was making a red, a gold, and a green version. So our theory is that Kramer himself saw that this was being done and wanted to replicate that for US consumers and started making that syrup.
And Victor Kramer?
Victor Kramer, yes.
Is he the one who introduced Passionola to us through San Diego?
So that's right. Victor Kramer and his wife Eugenia Kramer are really at the heart of this center, and it really more so starts with his wife Eugenia having a passion fruit tree just outside of their house, and she started making these jams and jellies, and later on they started to sell them, and from there the evolution with Victor himself comes the syrup, and taking the syrup, then distributing it to soda fountain locations and to drugstores.
Because we're talking during this time, we're talking Prohibition, right? So
yes,
you don't have bars like Don the Beachcomber, but it's probably, I imagine it's even better for if you had a syrup, a big flavorful syrup, to be in the soda fountain era, right?
Exactly, and that was the big thing. People were still messing around with laudanum, cocaine, and morphine. So why would you drink when you could have?
You're talking about the good Coca-Cola.
Exactly. So why were you messing around with cocktails when you could get something much better? It's in that time that he evolves the jams and jellies and preserves into the syrup, and then starts marketing that at the drugstores and at the soda fountain locations.
We see in 1958 there's Jarrow's Green Passion Cocktail Mix. So that's from 1958. Now, somewhere around this time in the era of Trader Vic, Trader Vic acknowledges Passionola, and it's in one of his books. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he describes it as a non-alcoholic syrup made from passion fruit. Comes in 3 colors: red, green, and natural, which we're thinking it's gold, obviously.
The gold, yeah.
All right, so then if you go to 1941, the character at the center of the story here, Victor Kramer, incorporated the Kramer Family Company as Passion Fruit Plantation, Inc., and that's 1941. With the expanded facilities, Kramer introduced 2 additional flavors of Passionola to compete with East Coast products, Passionola Red, that's reminiscent of rich red cherries, to compete with Haze 5 Fruit, and Passionola Green with the tangy tartness of lime to compete with Haze Panama Punch. So that's kind of our main character introducing, in addition to
the gold. Yeah. So then spawning off of there and just kind of, and at this point in time, you're seeing how passion fruit had now began to expand and have a further reach in the United States, whereas originally in the late 1880s, it was very difficult to get a hold of and was only regional between San Diego and Los Angeles.
And I think what's interesting when you start to like peel apart the layers of historical things, it seems like, it's like it seems so strange that there's all these people that have, a natural gold, then a red and a green. And it's just like someone did it and then everyone and other people saw it and then they started doing it. It's not as much like everyone naturally was like, yeah, the next logical step is to do this neon green. It's like they saw that on the shelf somewhere else and they copied it, right?
It is one of those like genesis moments where it just starts to happen in different locations and probably more out of competition than anything else, as it became what I believe the new flavor, right? Like this is the flavor of the decade. And as Passionola had coined it, the taste thrill of the century.
And another thing too is we get so caught up in modern times where if you want a syrup, you can get on Amazon and wherever you are.
2 days.
Yeah, 2 days. So if you're in New York, you can get a syrup from California. But back then, these were all regional, right? So you could have copying, and it's not necessarily to like take over the Southern California market, but like maybe you're like in another state and you don't have, Kramer's.
You certainly didn't have the distribution, and even more so the consistency if you were even getting product to say like, we'll get this out in another 6 months. So you had these regional locations that were trying to create their own versions of whatever it was, syrup or an ice cream flavor. That way they could provide it to their local stores.
So in the book, there are many recipes that call for Green Fassionola, including the Orange Fizz, Manana Cooler, Squall, which is from Pat O'Brien's, Herb St. Hurricane, Evergreen, Mortar Shot, Imperial Jade, Green Dragon, Rum Julep, the Ojos Verdes, which means green eyes. And I believe in the book, you call out that it's a reference to Scarlett O'Hara, who had green eyes. But the one that was the most interesting to me, and the one that we're going to make here today, is the Passionola Cooler. So pretty much all of those Green Fassionola cocktails, I've never seen those. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen a Green Fassionola cocktail, but the Passionola Cooler, it comes up in the book and there's a clipping there and a snippet for there, but it's also in the Miami News from 1943. And here's the clipping because I feel like it's just like so interesting. Fred Wilkie and Kitty Davis have obtained the exclusive rights to Passionola, the trade name of the liquid extract, and has introduced it to the theater restaurant in the form of the Passionola Bomber and the Passionola Cooler. These are tall, frosty, fruit-trimmed drinks of marvelous potency, throat, and eye appeal. Now, I don't know about you, I've never heard a drink referenced for its throat appeal.
Well, until now, right?
But in 1943. So customers are ordering them by the hundreds each night. The Bomber is rose-colored, and the Cooler is green-tinted and is made with gin instead of rum. And incidentally, for those of you who think you've been drinking the real McCoy over drugstore fountains, it may interest you to know it's synthetic, according to Wilkie. So the green is not real, which I think if you look at it, nothing in nature is that
green. That atomic green, or what is it, nuclear green?
Yeah, and it's just interesting to see that called out in 1943, because I think we always get the idea that like back then, 40s, 50s, 60s, people didn't care if something was synthetic, but it's kind of a cool little thing that they were like, hey, it's not real, it's synthetic, and maybe you want to know. All right, this is a gin cocktail, and for this one, I'm going to be using Forge Gin. You're also going to need lime juice, pineapple juice, and the very own make and drink Green Fassionola. I couldn't use the word Passionola because, they trademarked it. All right, so let's make some green fassionola. Let's start by peeling some limes. I like to use a wide peeler, and not all are created equally. I think this OXO one is better than all the other ones I've tried. Green fassionola is a combination of 4 different syrups, and I find it's easiest if you make them all separately and then combine them at the end. First is our lime syrup, the most crucial of the ingredients in the green fassionola, and I need 25 grams of lime peel. Now I'm going to add in 50 grams of water. Then I'm going to juice some of those peeled limes to get 50 grams of lime juice, and I'll combine it and blend it. All right, next I'm going to strain this out, and I still need 100 grams of a net here, so if I don't have enough from straining it, I'll just add water to equal 100 grams. Next, I'll add in 100 grams of sugar. And now I have 200 grams of lime syrup that is about 50 bricks. Next, I'm going to make pineapple syrup, and this is the easiest way to make it. I'm just going to take some pineapple juice and some sugar. But since pineapple juice already has some sugar, we can't just weigh out 100 grams of each. Pineapple is about 14 bricks. I only need 100 grams of this syrup, but I'll have a little extra with the amount I'm measuring out. But if you want exactly 100 grams, then start with 60 grams of pineapple juice and 42 grams of sugar. Tropical Standard Book has some of these helpful calculations in there to raise and lower bricks levels, which is what I'm using here today to adjust the syrup. Next, I need some peach syrup, and this one we'll need to make overnight with fresh peaches and sugar in a bag. I have several ripe peaches, so I'm just going to make extra syrup, but we only need 100 grams. Peaches will have some sweetness, so we don't need to use equal parts sugar to fruit. You can look up the bricks, or you can just guess. Most fruits are probably around 10 to 15 bricks, so I'm going to weigh out my total amount of peaches and multiply that by 0.9. Then I'll add that much sugar in. Then just squeeze out all the air. You could use a vacuum bag, it would work better here, but just trying to demonstrate that you don't need a vacuum bag. I kind of like to hang it off the edge of a counter, but actually if you have a sink, it's even safer that way. It's kind of the same as if you're submerging it in water, but a little bit easier. Now I'll put this in the fridge for at least overnight, but you can leave it in there for 24 hours or even longer. Now I'm going to strain out all the solids. And finally, I'll check the bricks to see how far off we are. It's 53 bricks, which is close enough for me. All right, now we're going to build our green fassionola. It's 2 parts of our lime syrup, 2 parts passion fruit syrup, 1 part white peach syrup, and 1 part pineapple syrup. So for this batch, it's 200 grams of lime syrup, 100 grams of peach syrup, 200 grams of passion fruit syrup, which I already had ready to go. I did a whole video on all the different passion fruit syrups you can use, and my own homemade version. This one is 50 bricks, and 100 grams of pineapple syrup. I'm just going to stir this all up and then bottle it. I use these little cruise supply bottles because they have a nice screw-on bottom, but they can be a little dangerous because the corks aren't always on when you're securing them upside down, kind of fall out sometimes. So sometimes I just use a funnel. So there you go, green fassionola. Well, not yet. We need some green in here, so I'm just going to add whatever food coloring I have around in the house. And I'm going to do about 5 drops, but more or less, it's up to you. And now, there you go, real green fassionola. Now just take the rest of that peach syrup and bottle it. You can freeze it even. And now you have a good syrup to add to your passion fruit syrup, along with some other fruits from the Great Pacific to make your own gold fassionola. We're going to build this in a drink mixer tin, starting with 1.5 ounces of lime juice, 1.5 ounces of pineapple juice, 3 ounces of our green fassionola, and 3 ounces of gin. And no, this is not for 2. This is for a single serving of this cocktail. All right, there you go. The Passionola Cooler by Fred Wilkie and Kitty Davis. All right, so I asked you before we started, when's the last time you had a green Fassionola cocktail?
Um, Coincidentally, yesterday, because my friend had ordered well, it was a green cocktail,
Okay.
but it wasn't Passionola. Well, when I was uh, researching the book, I went out and grabbed some of the green Fassionola because I had to know,
Okay.
what it was about, and when you're writing about the cocktails, you get curious and you want to replicate them. So that's when I at least first started having green
Yeah.
cocktail.
Okay. Well, very cool. So this is my very first green Fassionola cocktail, even though I made the Fassionola syrup. So we'll see. I mean, it's a drink from a long time ago. To the Passionola Cooler. Cheers.
To kitty.
To Kitty. I think it's good. I think it's really
Yeah,
good.
yeah. I say this one's a little bit sweeter than the other like versions I've made, but I guess it comes down to maybe the gin and the particular
Yeah.
Passional that you're using.
It's it is. If you're comparing this to a hurricane, it's not as bold because you're not getting all of the passion fruit in here. It's a lot less. I was worried about the bitterness from the lime peel. It's there, like in the background, but it's almost like the same bitterness you might get from like pineapple juice. So
But I think it plays well with the gin.
It
Just kind
does.
of like a little bit of that dry note at the end of it. It's
Yeah.
not overpowering, comes in at the end.
I think you could use any gin here too. I just use Ford's because it's kind of like a go-to like cocktail mixer, but something that has even more of those juniper notes probably work. Something a little bit higher ABV.
I think that going with Fords is a good choice to kind of stay in that realm, or at least like authenticity of maybe what they were mixing back then.
Yeah, I mean, for having like no reference, I think it's good. I mean, there's
Pretty
things you
rad.
could do. I think if you to change it to your preference, but I'm very happy.
Yeah, I know it's pretty rad, and I like the green on it.
Yeah, it's definitely synthetic, but that's part of the whole thing here. But it has this very intense lime flavor that you're only in this version. You're only going to get that lime flavor from the lime peels, which are in the lime syrup in the Green Fassionola. So that kind of changes it up. Kind of a nod to super juice and blending up the peels. So if you were just using lime juice in the syrup, I think you'd probably sell something good. But then you're just kind of adding more lime juice to the cocktail. So I feel like using like a lime cordial would be better. Some way to get the oil from the lime into the drink.
Yeah, well, we got to taste it before shooting the cocktail segment, and I thought it was actually very delicious, to be quite honest.
Yeah. And I'm gonna keep this recipe on hand, so when and maybe one day they'll make a green Fassionola, and
Maybe we have it already.
I'll be checking my notes to see how close it is to. I'll send it to the lab. So there you go, the Passionola Cooler. You can find that recipe inside of the Passionola book. So once again, cheers. Thanks for coming. Can you tell everyone like where they can find the book and where they can find you?
Yeah, they can find us on passionola.com, Instagram at p.fassionola.
And then they can find you on social media as well, correct?
Yeah, so my brand is Contigo Tiki Bar. You can find me at Contigo Tiki Bar on Instagram, at contigotikibar.com. Oh wait, and there's Etsy. I forgot about that. So
Yeah, don't forget
you
the
can find
Etsy
me-
where
Yeah.
you can get the lanterns. We didn't use those. We're going to use those for another cocktail coming up. But if you've seen me use those little lanterns on the show, that's where you can buy them. You can buy them on the Etsy shop. We'll have links in the episode description. So if you enjoyed this video, seeing Green Fassionola
Right here.
in use, and
over there.
I mean, YouTube's kind of hard to search, but I don't think I've seen a Green Fassionola thing on YouTube yet. And hopefully in the future we see more. Hopefully in the future there's a commercial version available. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a like below, consider subscribing to the channel, and otherwise I will see you on the next one. Cheers.
Cheers.